As a spaceship leaves the planet, a humanoid alien retrieves a pot with black liquid and drinks it. The liquid quickly takes over the alien's body, turning its skin black and dissolving its DNA, causing it to fall into the water. As its body dissolves, its DNA is taken away by the waves. Researchers led by Elizabeth and Charlie in 2089 discover paintings in a cave in Scotland that are at least 35,000 years old. The paintings they have found all over the world come from cultures that could not have shared the same information. 2 years later, the spaceship Prometheus leaves Earth. The whole crew is in deep sleep, and the one taking care of everything is David, a robot. In his free time, he learns more about humans, like playing games, watching movies, coloring his hair, and learning ancient books. He also likes to watch crew member dreams. For example, when Elizabeth was a little girl and watched an African tribe bury one of their family members, her father had to explain to her that each culture had different beliefs about death. The ship reaches its destination after 2 years of traveling, and David wakes the mercenaries and scientists' crew. It takes everyone some time to recover from the side effects and to get some food on their empty stomachs, although Captain Yannick also puts up a Christmas tree. Meredith, who oversees everyone doing their jobs properly, thinks this is dumb. Meredith plays a holographic recording of Peter, the CEO of Wayland Corporation, which funds this expedition. David is the closest thing to his son he will never have, since he will be dead when they watch this. Peter has always wondered where we come from and what happens after death, which is why he funded this expedition with Elizabeth and Charlie. Taking over the floor, the scientists outlined the paintings they found around the world and showed a star map that could take them to a planet with a sun that could sustain life. According to Elizabeth, this map was left by aliens called engineers who created humankind, but the rest of the crew is skeptical. Elizabeth explains everything to the crew members and they all started discussing for any idea, but some members started laughing as if it's as useless. Moments later, Meredith calls the scientist to come to her private quarters, where she has her expensive medical pot and life support. Meredith explains that she doesn't believe those cave drawings meant anything and she's doing this for Peter. If a scientist finds life, they're restricted from making contact with anyone, which makes the scientist think why they even came then. David spent the last 2 years understanding dozens of ancient books and is sure he can communicate with the engineers. The crew decides it is time to land and the ship goes through the sky, detecting no radio signals or heat sources, which should mean there's no civilization and people down there. However, Charlie notices some curvy lines on the ground that couldn't have happened naturally, and the ship lands on the ground. The crew gets ready to go on the surface and David wears a suit even if he doesn't need it. The group takes a bunch of vehicles to go near a dome-like structure, though geologist Fifield can't tell if it's natural or not, but he's sure it's hollow.
Fifield sends 2 special drones that map the whole area, allowing them to find their way through a series of caves. When they go deeper, they find a source of water that is evaporated by the sunlight, and the C02 levels are acceptable. While outside it's completely poisonous, it seems inside here it's breathable. Charlie assumes these aliens had been terraforming and takes the risk of removing his helmet, confirming it's completely fine. Then everyone removes their helmets to keep exploring the area, and David finds a wall with various symbols on it, which he activates thanks to his language knowledge. This causes a sudden hologram of running figures to appear through the QURIES, and the crew follows them until they find the body of an alien lying next to the door that killed it. Fifield can tell things are getting dangerous and a geologist won't be needed, so he and biologist Milburn decide to go back to the spaceship. While the scientist inspects the dead body, David manages to open the door, and they find the alien's head on the other side in an unmovable state. The rest of the crew finds more bodies, indicating the species is extinct. This room has worms in it, showing life is possible here, but also an iron statue of a humanoid head, carving on the ceiling, and a bunch of stone cylinders-type structures. David notices the cylinders are sweating and soon one of them begins to expel a black substance. Elizabeth doesn't notice because she's looking at the carvings, which have started to change their place. She thinks they've affected the atmosphere in the room and they need to leave, so she and Charlie begin to pack the head to take away while David steals one of the cylinders as he concludes that the cave is a tomb. At that moment, Yannick discovers there's a dangerous storm coming and calls the scientists to tell them. Meredith gives them 15 minutes to make it back before she closes the ramp of the ship. The crew runs out of the cave and drives the vehicle as fast as possible, making it back to the ship just in time. However, the alien head falls from Elizabeth's vehicle in the process and Elizabeth goes back to pick it up, causing the storm to hit her in the face and enter the ship. Charlie tries to save her by driving the vehicle through the wind, but he ends up getting stuck as well, and in the end, they must be pulled away by David with a set of ropes. Afterward, the crew begins working on decontaminating their bodies from external virus in the hangar, only to discover Milburn and Fifield haven't come back yet. It turns out the 2 scientists are lost inside the cave. Yannick manages to call them to explain they can't pick them up because of the storm, meaning they'll need to wait until morning. Meanwhile, the team sterilizes the head and a quick scan reveals it's not an exoskeleton, it's a helmet. When they open it, they find a humanoid alien head inside with new cells changing on its forehead, so they decide to put a stem line into his brain to make it think it's alive. The trick works and the face starts moving, but things get wrong suddenly and the overstimulation ends up making it explode. Elizabeth looks closer at the sample she took from the head and is astonished to discover that its DNA matches a person's. This means her theory was right and these guys created the human race. Meanwhile, David tries to update a sleep pod that holds a mysterious person. Nobody else knows about it except for Meredith, who violently demands David tell her what the person said. He only mentions that they were asked to work harder. Then David tries to check the cylinder he took in private, and he finds a bunch of capsules with black liquid inside. This gives him an idea, and he decides to visit Charlie to share a drink with him. They wonder how far they'll reach to get the answers they want. Afterward, Charlie joins Elizabeth in her room and she gets to share the news about DNA, so they celebrate by getting drunk. In the cave, Milburn and Fifield are looking at a huge pile of alien bodies. However, they suddenly hear a call from Yannick, who warns them that the scanner has found signs of a life form nearby. The scientists begin to worry, but then the ping on the scanner disappears, and Yannick blames it on a glitch. Eventually, Milburn and Fifield come across the room with the monolith and find black liquid coming out of the cylinders. To their surprise, they find a reptile-type alien swimming in the liquid, and when Milburn comes closer, the creature gets on his arm to try to break it. Fifield cuts the creature off to help him only to get the alien's corrosive fluid sprayed on his helmet, which eats through the plastic and reaches his face. The next morning, Charlie wakes up feeling unwell and notices there's something weird in his eyes. Yannick calls everyone to inform them the storm's gone, but he can't make contact with the scientists, so they'll go looking for them. He-Man couldn't find the glitch on the scan either, thus David promises he'll find the probe and fix it. However, while the group searches the cave, David stays behind on purpose and takes his path, sending Meredith a recording of what he sees. He finds another room full of thousands of cylinders and alien armor, then takes a corridor to a chamber with a bunch of cryolab capsules. David cuts Meredith off before activating a machine in the center of the room that shows him holograms of the engineers looking at a star map that includes Earth. When the show is over, David notices one of the cryolab capsules is glowing because it still has a live engineer inside. Meanwhile, Charlie keeps tripping during their search and Elizabeth notices he's sick, but he keeps going anyway. When they finally find Milburn's body, they come closer to inspect it and cause the little reptile alien to jump out and slither away. Yet Fifield is nowhere to be seen. At that moment, Charlie starts to feel sick, so Elizabeth asks everyone to go back to quarantine Charlie, and Meredith meets them at the hangar with a flamethrower in hand because she doesn't want Charlie aboard. Yannick and Elizabeth start arguing with her, but Charlie thinks he has no future and walks to Meredith on purpose to make her toast him to the ground while Elizabeth watches in agony. Moments later, the crew is quarantined and David runs tests on Elizabeth to check Charlie didn't infect her. To their surprise, the scan shows her to be 3 months pregnant, which is impossible because 3 months ago she had been under cryolab. The fetus has a creepy weird shape as well and Elizabeth wants it out, but David points out they don't have the means or personnel to perform such surgery. Suddenly Elizabeth's abdomen begins hurting terribly, so David gives her some medicine to make her sleep. Some minutes later, a few crew members wake Elizabeth up to take her to a cryolab capsule until they can decide what to do with their fetus. Elizabeth refuses to keep this thing and fights everyone off before running away until she finds Meredith's medical pod. She asks for a cesarean, but for some reason, the pod is only calibrated for men and can't do it, so instead Elizabeth asks for the extraction of a foreign body. The machine accepts this and gives her some anesthetics, but they aren't strong enough and she still feels unbearable pain as a claw removes the strange fetus from her body. The fetus immediately pops and a creepy alien comes out of it, which begins shaking its tentacles to try to free itself. Elizabeth has to stand the attack while the machine closes her wound, but as soon as the stitches are done, she leaves the pod and locks the alien inside it, leaving it to be put to sleep by the anesthetics. In the meantime, Yannick notices something weird standing in front of the ship and one of the crew members goes to check. It turns out to be a mutated Fifield, who begins attacking all the people in the hangar. A fierce fight begins among all the men, and since bullets don't do anything to Fifield, they end up using the flamethrower to kill him. Elizabeth wanders around the ship until she makes it to the infirmary to ask for medicine, and there she's surprised to discover Peter is still alive. He was the guy in the extra cryolab David had been talking to and the medical pod had been for him. Peter wants to meet his maker directly and demand answers, so David will take him to the engineer he found in the cave. Elizabeth tries to explain this planet is dangerous and not what they thought, but her warnings are ignored. Unwilling to give up, Elizabeth pushes through her pain and suits up to go back into the cave. Yannick finds her and points out this can't be the engineer's home planet. The cave is probably some military installation where they were making that black liquid as a weapon of mass destruction that leaked and killed them. Yannick wants to return to Earth, but Elizabeth convinces him to wait until she gets in contact with the remaining living engineer. Peter is getting ready to leave too and Meredith comes to try to stop him from dying in some hole as she calls him father, but Peter ignores her warnings as well. When the crew reaches the cave, David tells everyone to take off their helmets because he knows the disease isn't in the air, implying he was the one that put the black liquid in Charlie's drink. The crew reaches the new room with the thousands of cylinders and David calls it a cargo hold. This new scan angle makes Yannick and Meredith realize this isn't a cave, it's a spaceship. David activates the machine while he explains the engineers were in the process of leaving for Earth when they lost control of the black liquid that killed them. The last engineer is woken up, and Elizabeth tries to ask some questions, but Peter makes one of his mercenaries shut her up with a hit before he begins asking philosophical questions of his own. David translates into Proto-Indo-European, but the engineer reacts by taking David's head and using it to kill Peter. Then he pushes Elizabeth away to kill the mercenaries that are wasting bullets on him. Back on the ship, Meredith sees Peter's death through David's eyes and orders Yannick to get things ready to leave the planet. Elizabeth runs away as the engineer activates its ship to fly to Earth as well. This opens lots of areas on the ground and Elizabeth jumps through them as she calls Yannick to tell him to stop the engineer or the black liquid will make it to Earth and destroy humanity. Prometheus isn't a battleship and Meredith thinks they should leave without doing anything, but Yannick ignores her and orders his pilots to warm up the ion propulsion, which will transform the ship into a bullet. Meredith runs out of the ship, and Yannick gives permission to his pilots to do the same, but the pilots respect their captain and would rather go down with him. In mere seconds, both ships are crashing in the air, successfully stopping the engineer from leaving. As the ships fall to the ground, Elizabeth and Meredith must run away before they are crushed. Meredith isn't fast enough and dies, but Elizabeth manages to survive by finding cover next to a rock. Elizabeth then goes into Prometheus to get some supplies and hears some noises. Axe in hand, she goes to investigate and discovers her alien offspring has escaped the medical pod and grown into a giant. When David contacts Elizabeth and tells her to run, it's too late. The engineer shows up and pushes her against the wall to kill her. She opens the door behind her quickly, releasing the alien offspring who immediately leaps on the engineer. An ovipositor is thrust down the engineer's throat as Elizabeth runs away. As Elizabeth is having a breakdown outside the ship, David contacts him and explains the engineers have more ships underground, which he can pilot. As Elizabeth rescues both David's head and body, she has a request. Instead of returning to Earth, she wants to travel to the engineer's home planet, and David accepts even though he has no idea why she is so desperate. The final message Elizabeth sends to Earth before leaving Prometheus on an alien ship is the last one she sends to David and Elizabeth. Then Elizabeth and David drive away from broken Prometheus, for searching their way out of this planet. After a few moments, a black alien emerges from inside the dead engineer, confirming that this is a prequel to Ripley's story.
Subscribe for more videos like this, and hit like button.